Everyone, this is it. Empathy Chapter 32. It's about time that we begin the final battle that will go down in centuries. See what I did there? Huh? Alright then, let's get down to some reading, shall we? As the alien vessel continued to emerge from the portal, news helicopters began buzzing around the perimeter of the Kraytech facilities. I almost said industry, they're not facilities. This is SFNN, coming to you live about the Kraytech campus at the edge of the city. The reporter stated as the camera zoomed in on the spaceship, getting a clear view of the smaller ships swarming around it. Moments ago, some kind of portal formed in midair, and now what appears to be some sort of alien ship is emerging. In the Lucky Cat Cafe, Cass stood behind the counter, as she and her patrons watched the newsfeed on the restaurant's television, looks of fear and concern on their faces. Earlier, we reported that some sort of attack was being carried out at Kraytech, the reporter continued, following which was some sort of superpowered brawl. Sitting in her home, Jill watched the newscast on her television, her mouth covered in horror as Lucy sat next to her, doing her best to comfort the other woman. Now I'm sure the thought in everyone's mind is, are we witnessing a repeat of the Battle of the Bay? The reporter questioned. And, more importantly, who will be able to stop it? On the ground, the group all looked up at the Gorg's emerging ship with looks of abject terror. Dios mío, Honey whispered in fear. Baymax, Hero stated, his eyes focused on the sight above him. Are you getting anything with your scanner? I am not detecting any life signs, Baymax reported. But the material that these alien vessels are made out of is interfering with my scans. What are those, O? Tip questioned. That is the Gorg ship, O explained as he turned a bright shade of yellow. I spent most of my life on it. I had hopes to never be seeing it again. What are the smaller ships? Gogo inquired. Drone ships, O elaborated. A fleet of automated attack ships. Could he really conquer the planet? Riley asked nervously. He has before, O answered solemnly. The group fell quiet as the swarm of drone ships drew closer. What are we going to do? Honey questioned. At the question, Hero's expression turned resolute. We're going to do what we came here to do, Hero stated. We're going to stop the Gorg. Stop him? Wasabi questioned incredulously as he turned his attention towards Hero. Are you crazy? This is an alien invasion, Hero. We're not equipped to deal with something like this. This is something for the Incredibles or the monsters who fought in the Battle of the Bay. But they're not here, Hero pointed out. We are. And that's assuming the Gorg would even give us the option of leaving, Riley added. And if it did, if someone else did come along to stop it, a lot of people would still die in the process. That's not something I can live with. That's right, Riley. The group fell silent for another moment as they glanced at one another. All right, Gogo relented with a sigh. I wasn't planning on doing anything else today anyway. Fighting off an alien invasion? Fred questioned with a laugh. You guys couldn't drag me away. I'm with you, Honey stated with a nod. Smiling under her mask, Riley turned her attention towards Tip. Like you'd have any chance without me, Tip replied as she slipped her sunglasses back on. All right then, Wasabi stated with a nod. What's the plan? We do our best to keep things contained here, Hero explained. I don't know how, but we need to figure out a way to shut down the portal. It can't last, a new voice said, and the group turned to find Cray approaching them. Without the containment field, the portal will collapse in on itself. How long do you think it has? Wasabi questioned. I don't know, Cray admitted. My scientists barely consider this theoretically impossible. All I know is it can't be long. You better get out of here then, Hiro stated as he looked back at the rapidly approaching drone ships. I think things are about to get very dangerous very quickly. You don't have to tell me twice, Cray replied as he turned to flee. Mr. Cray! Riley called, causing the man to pause and turn back towards her, allowing her to gesture towards where Bill lay. My dad. Cray looked at where Bill still lay on the ground and stared at the man for a moment before turning his attention back towards Riley and nodding. I'll make sure he gets out all right, Cray told her before hustling over to Bill and hoisting the other man to his feet, draping his arm over his shoulders before half carrying, half dragging him away. Riley watched them go for a moment before turning back towards her friends. All right, guys, Hiro said. We have to do everything we can to keep those things contained and keep them from hurting people. That sound good? I have one request, Gogo spoke up. What's that? Wasabi questioned. That tip gives us a beat to kick some alien ass to, Gogo stated as she pointed at the van. I am way ahead of you, Tip replied with a grin as she flicked the radio on and turned up the volume. The radio sang lightly. As Hiro settled in on Baymax's back, the android extended his wings, preparing to take off. Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me for centuries. Wasabi flicked on his plasma blades, the energy humming as the green light they gave off reflected off the young man's armor. Gogo took a moment to stretch out her legs before taking the discs from her back and attaching them to her hands, the magnets on her wrists and ankles humming lightly. Fred took a few warm-up hops while stretching his arms, his excitement almost palpable. Honey quickly imputed a sequence into her back before taking the 3 multicolored chem balls it produced. Riley gathered her microbots to her and formed her 9 long tail stance behind her, while sliding into a fighting stance. And just one mistake is all it will take. We'll go down in history. Remember me for centuries. As though fiddled with some of the van's workings, Tip pushed her foot against the gas pedal a few times, causing the vehicle to give off a low, droning, revving noise. I give you one last chance to surrender, the Gorg stated as the drone ships settled into hovering positions all around them. Give me what I demand, and I promise your planet will be ruled benevolently. Glancing at his friends, Hiro received nods from all of them as they settled into ready stances. Yeah, well, I think I speak for all of Earth when I say that you can take that offer and shove it where the sun doesn't shine, Hiro stated with a cocky smirk. Destroy them! The Gorg snarled as the drone ships opened fire, bolts of sickly green energy lancing out from their triangular tips. Hey, remember me for centuries. Zipping in front of her friends, Tip positioned the van between them and a large portion of the drones before activating her shields. At the same time, Honey spun around and slammed her chem balls against the ground. A moment later, a large wall of a hard resinous substance sprung into being between the group and the drones that had taken a position behind them. Many of the shots fired by the drones impacted against either the shield or the wall, granting the group cover. The energy blasts quickly began to make short work of the resin wall, though, and as they impacted against the van's shields, the energy barrier began to ripple and flicker under the prolonged onslaught. Taking advantage of the cover, Baymax shot into the air, weaving between energy shots as he went. Grabbing hold of a nearby drone, Baymax spun it around and hurled it at another. The impact of the crash sent the second drone flying towards the ground, directly at the Gorg. As the Gorg watched, the drone crashed directly in front of him before exploding, the force of the blast knocking the alien off its feet and sending it smashing through the wall behind it. This battle is epic! Mummified my teenage dreams. No, it's nothing wrong with me. The attack was all the distraction the group needed to split off, forcing the drones to pick up which one of them to fire upon. Leaping into the air, Fred landed on top of one of the drones before leaping off again, the force of his jump knocking the drone into the path of another, sending them falling out of the sky in a shower of shrapnel. As the drone flew by him, Fred reached out and dug his suit's claws into the machine's side, the sharp points piercing the metal armor with a screech. Pulling himself up, Fred dug his other claw into the armor siding before ripping it off, exposing a collection of wires and electronics. Reaching in, Fred yanked out a handful of wires, causing the inside of the drone to spark and catch fire. Fred leapt free from the drone as its side exploded and it went careening towards the ground. Jumping onto another drone, Fred noticed a second drone drawing a bead on him. As the second drone fired, Fred leapt off the first, allowing the blast to hit the machine and send it crashing to the ground. Flipping in the air, Fred planted his feet against the underside of a passing drone before leaping off, sending the drone shooting upwards to crash into another drone. As Fred shot back towards the drone that had fired at him, he saw that it was aiming another shot at him, reaching it before the drone could fire. Fred dug his claws into the front of the machine and used his momentum to swing the ship around so that it was pointing downwards. With the last of his momentum, Fred swung up onto the drone's top just as it fired, the energy blast shooting downwards and slamming into a passing drone, sending it falling to the ground. Digging his claws into the front of the drone again, Fred ripped off its protective armor before breathing a gout of fire down into its inner workings. The kids are all wrong, the story's all off, heavy metal broke my heart! As smoke poured out of the hole in the drone's armor, small explosions began to rocket. Oh, sorry, I was just reading this.
Don't worry.
Small explosions began to rocket, prompting Fred to leap clear just as it exploded, the young man laughing wildly as the flames trailed behind him. Come on and let me in. Bruises on your thighs like in my fingerprints. Go-Go shot across the ground at a speed that almost made her appear as a yellow blur to the naked eye, weaving between green energy blasts that tore up the ground in her wake. Looking around, she spotted Wasabi signaling to her. Attaching her disc to her back, Go-Go reached out and took Wasabi's hands as she got to him. Using her momentum to his advantage, Wasabi lifted Go-Go up and spun her around before tossing her into the air. And this is supposed to match the darkness that you felt. I never meant for you to fix yourself. Flipping in the air so that she was upright, Go-Go landed on one of the drones, grinding along its pyramidal top as she retrieved her discs from her back. Leaping off the drone, Go-Go flipped and pirouetted in the air before hurling one of her discs at the drone, striking its propulsion system and knocking it out of the air. Still spinning, Go-Go threw her other disc at another drone, striking it on the nose with enough force to send it careening into a third drone, causing them to smash together and explode. Spinning again, Go-Go kicked one of her foot discs at a drone just as it was firing. The disc struck the drone on the nose, causing its shot to go wide and strike one of its fellow drones, sending it falling from the air in a cloud of smoke and fire. Flipping again, Go-Go landed on a passing drone with her single remaining disc. Flowing into a handstand on top of the drone, Go-Go used the magnets in her gloves to grip onto the drone's armor plating. As Go-Go swung to her feet into the air, one of her discs flew back to her and attached to her ankle. Swinging herself downward, Go-Go slammed both of her feet discs against the drone's propulsion system, breaking it in a belch of smoke. As the drone began falling towards the ground, Go-Go leapt off of it, stretching out her arms so that she could catch her two other returning discs. Flipping and spinning through the air, Go-Go lashed out with all four of her discs, striking 4 separate drones and sending them crashing into other drones in their tightly packed swarm formations. Landing back on the ground in a handstand, Go-Go windmilled her legs through the air, catching 2 of her returning discs on her ankles. Spinning herself back into an upright position, Go-Go continued twirling in place, grabbing her other 2 discs out of the air as she did. As Gogo finally skidded to a stop, the drone she had knocked out crashed to the ground around her, illuminating her with their fiery explosions. "Wasabi!" Gogo cried out, snapping the young man back to reality after having stared at her in amazement. Glancing around, Wasabi saw that he was now surrounded by a group of drones hovering in place. "Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me." Fear written on his face, Wasabi quickly flicked his plasma blades back on just as one of the drones fired at him. Reacting instinctively, Wasabi slashed at the incoming energy bolt and deflected it with his plasma blade. The energy bolt slammed into one of the other drones, causing it to explode. Looking down at his plasma blades in amazement for a moment, a confident grin spread across Wasabi's features as he turned his attention towards the remaining drones. "Do or do not," Wasabi whispered to himself. "There is no try. Remember me for centuries, and remember that Star Wars quote for centuries!" All at once, the drones opened fire on Wasabi. In reply, Wasabi began waving his arms wildly about him, blocking and deflecting every blast that came his way. The rapport of the laser weapons and the hum of his plasma blades just drowning out the special effects and noises the young man was unconsciously making with his mouth. As Wasabi continued deflecting shots, he began eliminating the drones with their own fire, including taking out one luckless drone as it flew past. Eventually, only one drone was left firing helplessly at Wasabi as the young man drew closer to it. "And just one mistake is all it will take. We'll go down in history. Remember me for centuries." Batting away a final energy blast, Wasabi let out a yell before driving one of his energy blades directly into the drone's nose, causing the weapon inside to explode and rupture part of the drone's armor. Still shouting, Wasabi began running down the drone's side, dragging his blade through it as he went, leaving a deep, burning cut in his wake. Reaching the rear of the drone, Wasabi pulled the plasma blade free with a flourish. As he stood with his arm extended in front of him, the drone hovered behind him for a moment before toppling onto its side and exploding. Standing up straight, Wasabi flicked his arm to the side before shutting off his plasma blade, the wreck of a drone burning behind it. "You done, Obi-Wan?" Gogo questioned as she skated up beside Wasabi, causing him to jump in surprise as she cocked an eyebrow and grinned at him. Yeah," Wasabi replied as he fought the blush of embarrassment that was forming on his face. "Good," Gogo replied as she skated off, "because we got like 1,000 more of these things left to go. Come on." Okay," Wasabi called after her self-consciously. "I looked cool though, right?" Wasabi only received Gogo's laughter in reply. "Hey, ya, hey, hey, ya, remember me for centuries." Flying through the air, Tip steered away through the swarm of drones as they flew and shot at her from every direction. As one flew directly at her, Tip switched on the van's shield and crashed into the drone. The machine crushed against it like a bug against a windshield. Turning sharply, Tip slammed the side of the van against one of the drones, sending it careening out of control before it slammed into a building and exploded. Oh, collateral damage, but it doesn't really matter when everything is awesome, is it? Everything is awesome, including this fight scene. Noticing a volley of fire that was coming from behind her, Tip spun the van around and threw it into reverse, allowing her to see the half-dozen drones that were pursuing her. Flicking on the van's cannon, Tip fired a concussive blast at the drones, the wave of force scattering them like leaves in the wind. As they fell, some of them crashed into other drones that were flying by, creating a shower of debris that slammed onto the ground below. "And I can't stop till the whole world knows my name, 'cause I was only born inside my dreams." Gathering the microbots beneath her, Riley rose a dozen feet into the air on a column of tiny robots, held in place as they swarmed up to her waist. Waving her hand in one direction, Riley whipped a tendril at one of the drones, slapping it out of the air like a fly. Swinging her hand back around, she smacked another drone to the side, slamming it into a second drone and sending them both crashing to the ground. Turning around, Riley found a drone barreling straight at her from the side. Facing the oncoming drone, Riley made a downward pushing motion with her hands, causing the column of microbots to compress like a spring. Then, a second before the drone reached her, Riley whipped her hands above her head, which caused the column to spring upwards. As it did, the top portion broke free from the rest of the column, the momentum carrying Riley and the microbots higher into the air, leaving a gap between her and the column. The drone shot into this gap, but before it could pass harmlessly underneath Riley, she whipped her hands upwards again, causing the column to surge upwards like a piston, smashing against the bottom of the drone and crushing it against the microbots Riley was standing on. Until you die for me, as long as there's a lie, my shadow's over you, 'cause I am the opposite of amnesia. Sorry, it's just reading. And let me take a drink of that. As Riley looked down at the pancaked remains of the drone now trapped in her microbots, she made a swirling motion with one hand, causing the tiny robots to swarm over the wrecked machine until it completely disappeared beneath their black forms. Turning her attention skyward, she spotted Wasabi's van streaking through the air, a drone hot on its tail, blasts of emerald energy chasing after the flying automobile. Curling her hands into fists, Riley drew her arms close to her side. In doing so, the microbot column turned so that Riley faced the direction the van was flying towards, while the tiny robots bunched up behind the wreck of the drone. Tracking the drone with her eyes, Riley waited calmly for a moment before she thrust her fists forward. As she did, the microbots below her suddenly surged forward, forcefully expelling the wrecked drone and sending it flying through the air. The wrecked drone tumbled end over end for a moment before it slammed into the drone that had been chasing after the van, sending both ruined machines falling to the ground. Having lost her pursuer, Tip swung the van around so that it was arcing toward Riley. Seeing the van coming, Riley formed two strands of microbots on her arms and whipped them at the van as it flew by. As the microbots latched onto the van, Riley pulled herself toward the van, a chunk of the microbots wrapped around her waist, coming with her. And you're a cherry blossom, you're about to bloom. You look so pretty, but you're gone so soon. Swinging herself up onto the top of the van, Riley used the microbots around her waist to secure herself to the vehicle's roof. Glancing around quickly, Riley lashed out with one of the microbot tendrils of the nearby drone, wrapping it around the machine and holding it tightly. Turning her attention to her other side, Riley lashed out with the other tendril and snagged a second drone, dragging both behind the van as it flew through the air. Whipping her arms around wildly, Riley began swinging the captured drones around like oversized flails. Metal screeched and sparks flew as Riley slammed the captured drones against their fellows, knocking them out of the sky with frightening ease. Pulling both captured drones back to her, their metal frames now dented and broken, Riley pushed the two broken machines together, the alien metal screeching as her microbots swarmed over it. As the microbots had compacted themselves as tightly as the two wrecked drones would allow, Riley gestured upwards with her hands, causing the ball of tiny robots to spring into the air. As it did, Riley suddenly threw her hands wide, causing the microbots to explode outward, sending shrapnel from the destroyed drones to shoot in all directions above her head. Zipping through the air, the shrapnel ripped through a dozen or so other drones as they passed, sending them all crashing to the ground. This is awesome! Running along the ground, dodging laser fire and falling drones, Honey scanned the sky above her. Reaching down to her bag, she quickly imputed a variety of chemical combinations and took hold of the multicolored balls that were dispensed. Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me! Hurling one upwards, Honey struck a passing drone with a neon green chem ball. As the chem ball broke against the drone's side, it splattered the metal plating with a green liquid. Within a few seconds, the liquid began to bubble as it ate through the armor plating, creating a cloud of noxious fumes as it did so. Ooh, green chemical must be corrosive slime. Interesting. After a few moments, the inner working of the drone began to spark as the acidic liquid burned through them. Within the space of another moment, the drone had burst into flames before it crashed to the ground. turning to another drone, Honey hurled a bright pink chem ball at it. The chem ball struck the drone right on one of its tips, causing it to break open. As it did, the drone was suddenly enveloped in pink foam that clung to its armored sides. The foam completely covered the drone's propulsion system, completely cutting it off and causing the drone to drop out of the sky like a stone before it harmlessly bounced and rolled along the ground. Alright, can I just say this? Honey Lemon is like the most powerful member of Big Hero 6 because she can do that. All of her chem balls have so many different abilities and the many different colors, like the pink for the foam and the green for the slime. Sorry if I'm stumbling a bit, it's just the excitement. And there's a frosty blue. Taking hold of the third chem ball, frosty blue in color, Honey hurled it straight into the air. As the chem ball reached its apex, it was struck by a passing drone, shattering it and splashing its contents in every direction. I'm going to use that name from now on. I'm going to try and say it as much as possible when it comes to blue. Frosty blue. See? Frosty blue. Say it try saying that 10 times fast. Frosty blue, 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 frosty blue. I cannot say that without stumbling and mangling the words. As the chem ball reached its apex, it was struck by a passing drone, shattering it and splashing its contents in every direction. I just read that again because I forgot where I was. Sorry. As a half-dozen drones in the splash zone were splattered with the chemical, they suddenly found themselves frozen as the blue liquid solidified into ice. With their eternal workings seizing up, the drones were sent plummeting out of the sky. Remember me for centuries. Palming a chem ball that was a swirl of black and purple in color, Honey hurled it at a passing drone. As it broke against the drone's armor, the chem ball released a black sludge that clung to the side of the machine. As it settled, a low humming sound started coming from the sludge as sparks of electricity shot off of it. After a moment, the drone began to shake as more electricity shot off at the sludge. Ooh, an electricity chem ball! Interesting! Suddenly, the drone swerved to the side. It slammed against another drone, the humming noise growing louder as the two drones magnetically clung to one another. As the two drones' propulsion systems sent them spinning through the air, they slammed into other drones, causing them to become stuck as well. And it kind of looks like the black goop from The Incredibles, like the one on No Madison Island, remember? And just one mistake is all it will take. We'll go down in history. Eventually, a dozen drones had become stuck together in a swirling ball of flying metal. As the ball swerved erratically through the air, the combined weight of the drones eventually dragged the whole thing to the ground. As the ball of drones spun uselessly against the dirt, Honey approached it, palming a crimson chem ball as she did. Oh, crimson! What does crimson do? Is that like King Crimson, or... Taking a lunging step towards the ball, Honey pitched the chem ball at the trapped drones. The moment the chem ball struck them, an explosion ripped through the drones, the resulting fireball forcing Honey to cover her face as the resulting shockwave forced her back a step. As she lowered her hands, Honey smiled as she saw that there was nothing left of the drones other than a burning mound of scrap metal. The crimson chem ball was a fiery bomb. I made my decision. The next time that an alien invasion happens, I'm going to call upon Big Hero 9. They could deal with it quite easily. Hey, I just cannot believe how strong this team has gotten, both emotionally and physically over time. All the way back in Chapter 26, they were getting their bejeebers kicked by the Gorg and Yokai, and then 6 chapters later, they're taking on a freaking invasion force. How cool is that? Most superheroes like to start small, like find some costume baddies to stop and some world-ending disaster involving people using the wrong experiments of some kind. Big Hero 9? Stopped a freaking alien invasion. You know, the usual. And we're not even done yet. Soaring through the air, Baymax zipped around the flurry of lasers being fired at him by the drones. Flying up to one of them, Baymax grabbed hold of it before spinning around and hammer-tossing it. The drone tumbled wildly through the air for a moment before it slammed into another drone, the impact causing both machines to explode. Ow. Sorry, I was just trying to reach a dirty piece of paper to put in a bin somewhere, and I got my hand caught in a thorn bush. It's alright, it's a small cut, nothing serious. Baymax, behind us! Hero called. In response, Baymax spun around, just as an approaching drone opened fire on them. Crossing his arms in front of himself, Baymax took the brunt of the blast on his armor, the impact knocking him back a few feet. Recovering, Baymax turned to follow the drone as it flew by and shot one of his rocket fists after it. Quickly catching up to the drone, the fist slammed against the machine's backside, destroying its propulsion system and sending it spinning out of the air as the fist returned to Baymax. Remember me for centuries. There are too many drones, Baymax reported as he dodged around another green energy blast and blocking a second. Glancing at the drones swarming around them, a thought occurred to Hero. Maybe we should split up, Hero said before activating his communicator. Hero said before... Oh, can you hear me? Yes, Hero Hamada, O's voice said through his headset. I am hearing you. Do you know how these drones work? Hero questioned. Like the controls and guidance systems. Yes, I has been working on them before, O replied. Why are you asking this question? Because I'm about to do something either really stupid or really cool, Hero answered, his eyes focused on a drone flying beneath Baymax. I'll let you know how it goes. Hey, hey, ya, hey, 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 ya, remember me for centuries. What is Hero gonna do? With that, Hero leapt from Baymax's back, his arms pinwheeling as he fell from the open air. Hero! Baymax called as he looked down at the falling boy. Holy shit! Tip exclaimed as she and O flew towards Hero. Sorry, pardon my language, just reading from the... Screaming at the top of his lungs, Hero did his best to direct himself towards the passing drone. As he slammed against the drone's armored side, Hero's screams abruptly cut out as the impact forced the air out of his lungs. Gasping for breath as his mind screamed in panic, Hero began rolling off the drone's smooth side. Reaching out, Hero slapped his hands against the drone's armor plating, his magnetic gloves clinging to the metal and halting his fall. Taking a few calming breaths, Hero pulled himself up onto the drone, clinging to the machine's pyramidal top. Hero, whatever you're doing, I hope it's a good one. That was freaking insane. Listening as though fed him instructions through his communicator, Hero opened a panel on the drone's side, granting him access to its inner workings. Reaching his hand into the opening, Hero fiddled around for a few moments before the drone suddenly dropped and bucked wildly in the air. Holding on tightly, Hero continued to play with the workings until the drone leveled out again, a grin spreading across his face as he found he could control the machine's movements. Ah ha ha! So that's what Hero was trying to do. Ooh. We've been here forever, and here's the frozen proof. I could scream forever. We are the poison youth. Pulling itself through the hole it had created in one of the building's wall, the Gorg stopped and watched the destructive battle unfold, its tentacular hands curling into tight balls. Master! Smack called as he ran over to the Gorg and prostrated himself on the ground. I have summoned your mighty armada. They shall crush these puny humans like insects. Crush? The Gorg asked with a snarl before it looked down at Smack. Crush! Reaching down, the Gorg wrapped one of its tentacles around Smack's neck and held him aloft, forcing him to watch the battle. Does it look like they're being crushed to you? No, Gorg, it sounds like you're the one who's being crushed, not us. Swooping lower over the battlefield, Hero chased after another drone, firing several energy blasts into its rear and sending it crashing to the ground. Leaping into the air, Wasabi cut a drone clean in half, shouting at the top of his lungs as sparks showered around him. Falling from above, Fred landed on one of the drones flying low to the ground, slamming it into the earth. The discs on her hands spinning rapidly. Gogo slammed them against the top of a drone, the discs digging deep into the armor plating as sparks flew. Drifting through a turn, Tip slammed the side of the vent into one of the drones, causing it to bounce off the vehicle's shield and go tumbling through the air before crashing into another drone, causing both to explode. Grabbing a handful of chem balls, Honey spun around and hurled them into the air, creating a large explosion that destroyed half a dozen drones. Waving her hand upward, Riley caused a wall of microbots to surge up in front of her. She followed up by thrusting her other hand forward, causing spikes to burst out of the wall, skewering a few drones in the process. Grabbing a hold of a passing drone, Baymax gripped it by both ends before pulling on them. With a screech of metal, Baymax split the drone in half before throwing the remains onto the ground. Finmonster, this is freaking spectacular, man! I am so impressed! This is so incredible from the You said that you would try to improve in writing fight choreography after Wasabi and Gogo's fight, and by Colossus, by Columbus, by Athena, you freaking did it, man! You should be proud of yourself! Some legends are told, some turning dust or to gold, but you will remember me for centuries. I feel as I must be seeing snow, Smek answered. It would seem these scum require more forceful methods of persuasion, the Gorg stated as it dropped Smek onto the ground. We are returning to the ship. But master, Smek protested. What if... These humans have proven to be nothing if not predictable, the Gorg cut him off. They will follow in order to save the female, and when they do, they will be bringing what I desire to me. A few moments after he spoke, a drone flew down and hovered next to the Gorg, prompting it and Smek to climb up onto the machine, which promptly lifted off. Looking around the battlefield as she flew, Tip spotted the drone the Gorg and Smek were riding, rising up towards the portal that was still rising up towards a ship that was still emerging from the portal. Guys! Tip called over the communicators. The Gorg's making a break for it! We have to stop him! Riley replied as she looked up and spotted the retreating alien. If he gets back to his ship, he'll kill Abigail! To say nothing about what that big ship might be capable of. We can't all just go after him, though, Fred argued as he bounced between drones. If we don't contain these ships, they might go after the city. We'll have to split up then, Hero replied as he angled his drone to go after the Gorgs. Riley, Tip, O, Baymax, and I will go after the Gorg. The rest of you can contain the drones. Hero, you can't! Honey replied, desperation in her voice, watching as Baymax picked up Riley and began flying up towards the ship, microbots swarming over his back. We don't know what's up there! We have to, Hero replied, as Baymax and the van fell in behind him. We can't let Abigail die. Not when we can do something about it. It's what Tadashi would have done. A short, meaningful pause followed. Good luck. Good luck. Honey all but whispered. Just one mistake is all it will take. We'll go down in history. Remember me for centuries. Hey, 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 yeah. Hey, we'll go down in history. Remember me for centuries. I'm going to try to take his drone out, Hero said as he closed in on the Gorg. If I can do that, it should give us time to save Abigail. I hope you all liked me singing that song, folks, because at the When the song ends it for centuries is when the chapter ends, so let's wrap the rest of it up, shall we, guys? I hope you enjoyed my singing, and I apologize for all the stumbling there. I hope that in the next chapter I can get that fixed, or somewhat make it more tolerable, but for now, let's end this! Pulling up behind the Gorg's drone, Hero opened fire, the green blast of energy lancing around the alien but not scoring a hit. Insolent whelp! The Gorg snarled as he looked back at Hero. A moment later, 2 other drones came flying down from the ship, firing rapidly at Hero as they came. His eyes widening in fear, Hero leapt free of his drone a moment before the energy blast slammed into it and destroyed the machine. Screaming at the top of his lungs, Hero fell through the air as debris showered around him. Before he had fallen very far, though, a tendril of microbots wrapped around his stomach and yanked him into Baymax's waiting hand. Thanks, Hero said to Riley as she removed the microbot tendril from him, and called it back to her position in Baymax's other hand. No problem, Riley replied as Tip blasted the 2 oncoming drones out of the way with the van's pulse cannon. Looking up, she saw the Gorg disappear into the rapidly approaching form of the ship. I don't think he should be thanking us, Fear whispered in her mind. I think whatever is up there will be much worse. Oh, why did it end there? It's getting so good! Guys, I am so sorry I took a while to get to this chapter. I have been getting ready to finish college, but don't worry, this half term, whenever I can, I will record all the way to the end of this. It is happening. Nothing will stop me now. I am going to finish up the feat once and for all. Just 4 more chapters, guys. 4 more chapters. The conclusion, it better be freaking mind-blowing. With that out of the way, office note. Well, this isn't easy to write, but I loved every moment of it. This is another scene I've been thinking about for a while, so it's great to finally put it out there. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Finmonster, if you heard me reading this story, you'll find that I enjoyed it very much. Well, guys, the final battle continues next chapter, but until then, I'm the Masked Ranger saying, keep moving forward, have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!